Whoa. Happy going to be a full moon in Scorpio. We'll also have the full moon at its peak during a meteor shower. So wish upon a star, my friend. And we will also have a lunar eclipse, which is a dark moon in the Earth's shadow. How appropriate for Scorpio. There is also, obviously Mercury's in retrograde, and I feel like Jupiter over this, like from now up until the full moon, over this span of time, Jupiter's inching towards Mercury, but Mercury's in retrograde, so it's actually moving closer toward Jupiter as well. So they're kind of colliding in a sense. And I feel like retrogrades always give me this like almost like juke action, kind of, and like the long way around. I'm pretty sure I was born with Mercury in retrograde too, and I've always felt like I take the long way around, the scenic route of lessons, if you will. And both of those things are in very stubborn and aggressive energies. They're both horned creatures. And I feel like that's almost like hear me out, like a hot potato situation. And with such a stubbornness and a burning that it's almost like holding on to a hot rock, like hot coals. But that is building of momentum. That is a deep burn, if you will. That is, illuminating embers. It's almost like watching the flame grow, or like watching you grow, in a timely fashion, and maybe not with, sparks a flying, but there's stars, and that glow is often the hottest part of many fire. So kudos, party on. With that being said, I do get the feeling that Mars and Saturn are very much incommunicado. It's very like wink and a nod kind of energy to me. Like while there's all of this focus on this hot coal, there's these two distant kind of winking and nodding at each other. And I think directly sending all of their energy, all of that water energy to the moon, in this, I don't know, weird triangulation that I see. Saturn is actually is actually fully officially in not Aquarius, and in Pisces. And I feel like that is something that is still revealing itself and unfolding. But both of these, like essentially on the edge of this hot potato action, are very deep water signs. And I feel like, that makes it all be more obvious sometimes if you were to put a drop of water on a hot coal. And I feel like maybe that steam is actually a bit of magic that Scorpio has in their aura, in their energy, in the way that they like combust. Like how like on heat cameras you can see the things that we can't really see, like this is how it looks. Minus all of that rambling, okay? Not minus, with it, moving on. We're gonna pull some cards and see. Okay, actually, I really want to see what Mars and Saturn are talking about. We're gonna do that for a second first. Just an energy, but it's for as slow as things unfold, sometimes it really does just surprise you out of nowhere, ain't it? And it is the mystery of Scorpio, the surprise of the night, ain't it? What are Mars and Saturn talking about? Ooh, okay. So, duh. The world came up as I was asking it. Had to keep it. Already knew it was important. With Jupiter and Mercury, you have to consider Mercury is this tiny little hot thing, but Jupiter is this, like, I'm pretty sure it's a lot of ice, but it is way more massive, has much more of a gravitational pull. So it's kind of swooping all of that energy and like they're coming into contact, very much so. This is a very expansive idea, an expansive idea that we can play with. I feel like it again adds to the heat, adds to the rush that these bulls will have in their mentality. I think the stress that maybe, and this goes hand in hand, the stress that maybe felt with these water signs sort of at the edge, sort of like holding in, which isn't really quite what that element is for, but attempting to hold in all of this energy, all of this heated energy, would do itself a favor to understand that water was not meant to be the wall, but it can be the temperament. It can be what changes the elements to help these things trickle. It's almost like fully understanding like the vulnerability as a superpower, because Saturn is also learning with these lessons, and I think Mars is tired of these lessons. And there's an expansiveness that will exist with both of these things. It may be slow rooting or slow firing, you know, like slow to like what seems like a dud firework, but like blows up in your face, but like in a kinder way, not necessarily in a firework exploding in your face kind of way, but that kind of unexpectedness. Knowing that already and in asking again was the Ace of Cups and the Page of Swords, which really only tells me, I mean, not really only, but which tells me that on top of this worldly expansion happening internally, that becomes something that is, again, like I said, with this, you know, sort of aura and smoke with the Page of Swords, that is your mentality, that is your energy, that is your frequency. And that is exactly what's happening to Jupiter and Mercury. Jupiter's kind of going to be the leveling of frequencies in the planets that are around it. Ultimately, that becomes your gift. In the same way that people can feel when you're, you know, off, or notice when you're stressed, people can feel when you're fucking on, even if it's unexplainably so. And that becomes your superpower in moving through the world. Superpower is a funny word to say, but it becomes like the mood of when you dance, you know, the definitiveness with which you move. And that is often something I find very attractive in people. The purposefulness and the intention with which you can move. And it doesn't look any one way. Intention is, again, of the mind universe, which is, again, why we have the Page of Swords. I think that also will call to a calmness for that growth. Again, with this hot coal holding hot potato kind of metaphor, whether that be you holding on to ideas or holding on to like a sense of, I don't want to say hoarding, but it's like we really do like overboil ourselves sometimes. There's like a specific temperature that you want tea at, and sometimes we're like, but is it hot enough yet? Is this idea full enough yet? Is this painting done yet? Is this something that I can present to the world? And you almost hold this coal, afraid to throw it. But if you're not afraid to throw it and you are just building your capacity for heat, and then party on. We're learning something from both of those things. We can learn something from both of those instances. Do you pass it off, or do you sit and let it go deeper? And there are appropriate times for both of those things. But what does it feel like in your mind and in your atmosphere? Is it heavier to hold it? Is it heavier to let it go? And again, both of those things are useful in different situations. But so that's general. We'll go with all of the planets now. I also get the idea of a collision with these kinds of ideas, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that. Just because something makes contact does not mean it has to make forceful contact, i.e. collision. Love taps. Let's think love taps. But yeah, that can also be, you know, time or just intensity of whatever is to come. Sticky. Okay. I'm happy. You're happy. We are happy. Much like we're hanging out in my humble abode. Oh gosh, I forgot I had tea. We're gonna take 3 deep breaths together. And see what we can tap into on the waves of this moon. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Okay. We're dealing with a lot of the relationship with the sun, contrary to the moon. What a paradox. Which is also a relationship to our sense of self, a relationship to our sense of confidence, personality, like who you are, what you think your light is. Yeah, and how we communicate that. You know, Pluto's in a whole new fucking situation. So the ways in which we communicate that are taking on a whole new face, or maybe taking on a whole new meaning, or a deeper meaning, or, you know, you're finding that meaning woven throughout. Okay. All right. 3 of Swords at the bottom of the deck. This is Zeitgeist. The 3 of Swords is a very intense card. It's a card I love, but it is a card that definitely deals with a lot of wounds and a lot of pain and a lot of heartbreak and a lot of insecurity and a lot of sacrifice. The ways in which we bleed. However, that is a cleansing thing, that is a healing thing, that is a very powerful thing and a very integral thing. And those things often make us just more upright. I don't want to say stronger, but more upright, more aware, more conscientious, more integral, really. It's like the antithesis of like jellyfish spine. With that being said, I also think that as Jupiter advances out of its placement slowly but surely, and Mercury moves closer to it and with it, and Uranus does a little dance on its own, Chiron stays fucking put, or seems to. And I think that that is because it is a tether in where Jupiter will strive to, and where Mercury will join its striving and thriving. And again, that like juke action I was talking about, I do feel like, while we are still in retrograde, there are things that come back around as they go down the drain. There are things that pull us back mentally or emotionally because it's a reoccurring cycle, or it's something that is still a connection that we have in space or time in our minds. These are... Isn't Mother's Day coming up? Like, I mean, ultimately, that is very much a legacy of like where the world has come from, where the world has been acknowledged, or how the world has acknowledged it and acknowledged female apostles. They don't. And that is a difficult grand scheme metaphor for the way family traumas can feel more like a curse and feel more like a tethering to and a hold back, rather than again understanding your light and understanding your sun and your power, and that being more of a tether to your soul, which is a buoyant tether, which is more like an anchor than it is being docked. I hope that makes perfect sense. With that being said, I think, because I've never seen this in this card before, but now I'm seeing it, and I saw it the other day when I was thinking and should have painted it. Whatever, I still will. The beautiful paradox of love and loving, I think, is very much being able to find yourself smaller in the space of, or like safe and small and vulnerable in a loving space where a heart, your own specifically, but others too, can wrap around you and almost hold you in it, like a baby, like a wee baby. But at the same time, outside of the protection of that ribcage and that heart and all of that compassion and all of that holding and all of that honoring, becomes a huge expansiveness and ability to be in and out of yourself and beyond yourself, for sake of joy and exploring and creativity. And I've seen this too in dreaming, in the ways that like in dreams you can step in and out of yourself and kind of like a hamster through multiple tunnels, you know, like cheeks full of joy, just spelunking through ourselves, and being able to dance in and out of those things, which is again like this expansive, you know, creative concept. And that is where love fills more space. And so I have this idea, and eventually I'll paint it, I promise. But that is also very much what's going on here. And on top of this uprightness, this learning to not slump your shoulders and find will again, comes from both inside, like in utero, like you in safest space, like farthest memory, you know, maybe when you very literally are only sensitive to light and sound, and that was your reality, like inner child, like inner fetus, nurturing that to erupt again with a healthier connection, with a new kind of tethering. You know, if you think about, you know, the umbilical cord, you know, tethering to the nutrients of what was holding it. How do we tether ourselves to, and what nutrients, and what is holding us? And oftentimes those tethers are very literally severed too soon, but also oftentimes those tethers are to things that are not nourishing. And that also is very much not entirely our stubbornness with our own trauma, but very much the way that we are programmed in the world to understand nourishment as a very weird, literal, tangible consumption thing, and supplemental almost, rather than a part of your wholeness. If you didn't catch all my diet culture references. Anyway, moving on. The Hierophant's Page of Wands and the Hermit. The Hermit has come up a lot, I think, for a lot of people recently, and I think that is because we're understanding something new going into Taurus season, antithetical to the excitement of summer, the need to return and repose and repair ourselves and rest and all of these things. Recuperate, like the putting ourselves on our charging dock, if you will. And that doesn't mean you can't do things. And I think that's the problem, is we find ourselves so overtaken and taken away by the basic modes of entertainment that we're offered in this world, which is, again, often, you know, substance and escape and things like that. And so we tend to think we have to avoid that in order to be able to really go into that place of rest. And that's not necessarily true. In fact, I think that ultimately gives it more power and takes more rest away. It takes more rest away from where your heart is and your mind is, in feelings of isolation and what have you, and deprivement, which is a, you know, very Eurocentric Catholic thing to do. I shouldn't say Catholic, Judeo-Christian, let's be real. Abrahamic. And I think the Hermit still connects. He's still very connected. I don't think it's a card, like, I don't think it has to be a card of isolation, or it isn't when it's an empowered state and an intentional state. He's still connecting, he's just connecting mindfully. He's still very much a part of society, but he allows society to come to him when he's needed, rather than to insert himself in situations that are exhausting or draining or what have you. Mindful dude, bright dude, awesome dude, and he knows his light. He, in fact, is the carrier of his light and is the light for other people. So, like, what a G, what a great place to be. And ultimately, I think where we all want to go, but we find ourselves disilluminated by the rules of the world around us, which is the Hierophant in its first place. Turn inward. What are your rules? What are your rewards, and why? And I think the more you explore that, the more you can find where these rules were not your own. And that can be many things, you know, like that's the religions we grew up in, that's the family dynamics we grew up in, that's the friend circles we've had, and that's also the shame cycles we've had and rules that we've had for ourselves that maybe were just ways we tried to simplify the complexity of our magnitude of expansive emotions, of our spectrum of self. And I think that's where the Page of Wands will find power, because there's very much a vast and like plentiful ecosystem in and surrounding him, and one that he almost takes up full space in. He's almost like a whole mid-plane, as if he's both part of the fire and the sky and the trees and everything. Quite honestly, it looks more like wings, come to think of it. And I don't know if any of the other pages have wings, actually. How decorated, how beautiful, how supple. Ooh. So again, with the Three of Swords in mind, I think the depths of which we are capable of finding structure in that, maybe peeling back the layers and building up ourselves again, because again, all of this sun energy, this red evolves a lot in this pull. It gets a lot more, like, it's so flat in this Hierophant right now. I mean, I don't know. It's so flat in this Hierophant, and it moves into this, like, very, like, potent, passionate, like, mix of various reds with this page, and then as in, like, this cloak. And the Hermit is obviously still wearing this, still, like, donned in this color, still bestowed in this color. But it's definitely aged and matured, and looks more like dried blood, which is more oxygen to a wound, which is more breath, which is more air, which is more idea, which is more, again, this Three of Swords upright, or like this inverted. I like it inverted. That's where it is. And I think that also comes with a lot of healing. Dried blood comes with scabs, comes with the closure of wounds. What are we looking for closure for? I mean, many things. We've talked in the past about, new chapters and new characters, and there are perhaps, for nostalgia's sake, in the heart of our authorship, perhaps still frayed ends that need to be dealt with. Through water or fire, we've got both on our hands, and that is included in the tapestry. It doesn't dismiss or get rid of anything, but it does bring closure, and I think that's important too. It doesn't disappear, whatever Chiron is holding and heating us with, whatever Jupiter is slipping in our pockets, whatever Mercury is firing, whatever this Three of Swords has been upright in the past for. They don't magically disappear, but they synthesize, they heal. Like scabs, like wounds become scabs, become scars. The scars are where the light gets in. The scars technically have less tensile strength or are more sensitive, and that is something to embrace in a positive way. So for it being a dark moon, for it being a Scorpio moon, there will come a lot of light, and there will be, in the darkest of night, a plentiful amount of illumination. And that's also something this meteor shower will gift us. So keep an eye on the sky and make a wish on a star. Okay, we pull some numbers and we see what time does. Scorpio, what's up? All right, 3 deep breaths. Riding the wave. Sorry, that was one. Take a deep inhale. And exhale. Take a deep inhale. And exhale. Ah, man, Jesus. Okay. There's a lot more maybe going on around us than we'll be participating in. or a lot more coming at us than we feel like we're dishing back, which is awesome. Like, you know, rewards, luck, you know, that's finding cash on the floor sometimes too, but it stings. And I think it will have a lot to do with pleasure, and with the ways that we derive pleasure. That doesn't necessarily, I mean, yes, that is a part of love. And the things that give our spirit pleasure are the things that bring us love. But I don't know, it's the rise of summer, and I don't want that just to sound like dicks are flying at you, or, you know, fleshlights. Scorpio. That's why. Okay, because as these dicks or fleshlights or, you know, whatever various sex toys you're using are flying at you, or whatever pleasurable opportunities and you know, fun things and what have you. You know, friends that want to go skydiving, friends that want to go bowling. Among all of that, that isn't to say like this isn't the time to engage in it, but there will be a balance to be held, for yourself and in your own. Like, there will still be like a necessary time to be with your plants and nurture yourself and take your time in the morning and read the fucking newspaper and reestablish stability so that you can continue to do those things and engage in those things from a place of strength, rather than, you know, rushing and let that like fucking Lady Gaga sound bit. It's like plane, another plane, da 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 da, blah blah blah. We don't have to rush in that way. We can take just as much time. Like, there has to be a balance in those two things. And it can also feel like laborious in and of itself to keep up in that manner. So, are we doing that for sake of productivity, or for sake that it feels like, you know, another job, I guess? How can we step back from that, you know? Maybe you just read the newspaper with a homie. And I say that because it's like part of the card. But sixes are reciprocity and balance, and what you dish, you gotta take, and what you give, be willing to receive. I actually really like that, but let me not elaborate on that. I'll take it to myself. 3 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds, king of diamonds. Ooh, okay. Okay. Well, that's that level of reciprocity. And maybe that's the way that we will bend our light when you find it. You'll want to see more in where you'll see more around you, and you'll receive more because of your openness too. Like, okay, that's why I wanted to expand on that too. Not just for me, but because we all need it. I'm gonna have to rewind this and remember that forever. What did I say? Give, but be open to receiving, like, to the same extent, something like that. Oh, God, instant rewind. Boop. The 7 of diamonds, I think, is both reiterating that, and also I think I got another reminder again about levels of consumption and how easy it can be to over consume in any situation, like take too much, and that in that sense sounds kind of like a greedy thing, but sometimes we just put up with too much too, and that is very much a zeitgeist in the world. And perhaps we can have a keener eye on those things that will be shed more light in the ways that we see the world, which, you know, people often say, like, judgment that you have in the world is also very much a reflection of where you judge yourself, or where you hold shame. But when we balance those things out, we wouldn't be operating through shame, but we would be able to keenly analyze where our judgment is and why, and how we can move beyond that, rather than let it suck us in. King of Diamonds, I think is very clear on those things, and I think we'll be very clear and able to communicate those things, and we'll also maybe rather than looking for that kind of clarity in the world, will become that kind of clarity in the world. Like do unto others what you want done unto yourself. All of these like little things are very micro ways of living a Six of Wands, truth of reciprocity, in the way that you both grow your light and expand your light, so that others can grow their own light and expand their own light as well, and bear witness to. It's very commanding. I think perhaps there's a time of looking, there's a time of learning, and there will be falters where maybe we slip in that, where we accidentally allow our boundaries to become preferences, or where we allow somebody's preference to become a boundary. And though that may feel like it's retrograde in and of itself, it does clarify the concept, and it does shed more light into knowing. And I think, again, the King of Wands energy will go through this learning process so that they can fully expand on it and offer insight to it to other people. Very similarly to the Hermit, in a very honorable way. And ultimately, is that not what becomes our Ace of Cups? In this collision of ideas that creates perhaps a new paradigm, both internally and externally. One can only hope for the world, eh? Anywho, I feel like that is what I got for you. Happy full moon. This definitely sits for me. I hope you find the perfect place for this to sit with you, or that it finds you. But, party on. I hope you see a shooting star. And I hope that rather than wishing, you are deeply struck with awe. All right. Revving out there. Party on. Love you. Thank you for hanging out. I hope you enjoy the fullness of the moon and all of its times, and I hope it serves you well. Until next time.